Welcome to Managing Summer Reader as an Administrator. This session or class is 301. The prerequisite for this session is that you have taken the session 101 as well as 201. The agenda for session 301 is understanding system setup, understanding program setup, understanding links and messages, quick review of managed features on the system maintenance page, understanding programs, and then question and answer. The topics that we'll be discussing under Understanding System Setup will be Understanding System Settings, Understanding Language Text Setup, Understanding Security Setup, Understanding Quick Search Setup, Understanding Staff Homepage Setup, Understanding Reviews Maintenance Setup, and Understanding Certificate Setup. Let's begin by signing in to the admin side of the Summer Reader program. As you can see, I currently have my program set up for the Advanced Security, meaning I'm going to type in my username and password that I had set up in the Advanced Security section. You may, however, have Simple Security, meaning you're only going to have the password option that's going to allow you to put in the administrative password to get into your staff side of the program. Now that I'm into the staff side of the Summer Reader program, today's session is going to cover the System Maintenance section. So I'm going to come up here to my toolbar and select System Maintenance. Once we're on the System Maintenance page, you will notice there are a lot of things that a system administrator could come in and make modifications to. You literally can come in, select Add Program, and begin adding your programs to your system. However, there are a lot of things that you need to set up first to set up your different defaults as well as just basically setting up the system. And to begin doing that, you need to come over to System Setup and select System Settings. Within System Settings, there's several areas that you will be able to make modifications to that'll set defaults for your system. The first section is General Settings. Then we have Homepage Settings, Regional Settings, Registration Settings, Reviews Settings, Security Settings, Mobile Settings, and Novelist Settings. As you can see, there are a lot of fields on this page, and if I was to go through every one of these fields, and we talked about how to update and how to modify those fields and shown how it adjusts the system and modifies the system, we would be here all day. The great thing about our system is if you ever have a question about a field on this page, we do offer helpful tools to get that information with just one click. By clicking on the question mark next to any field on this page, we'll display a help text box. As you can see within the help text box, it's going to give you the definition of the field, and then it will also give you recommendations on how to update this field. You can do that with any of the fields throughout this page. So as I scroll down, you'll see that question mark a lot. What we're going to talk about today, though, is just a high-level overview of this page as to what you can find on this page. When you go into your system, you will know where to go begin. Here in General Settings, you're going to update the information about your library. You're going to have your library name, the library homepage, your library contact email address, and then you also have the option of setting up different defaults, such as allowing prize cancellation, list mouse overs, program activity days, so you could set those different defaults. Under Homepage Settings, this is going to regulate the defaults on your homepage. As you can see, we have the homepage setup. We have tabs, drop-down lists, or links. This is basically how do you want your programs to be listed on your home page. As you can see, my default is tabs, and then the next field is I could choose rounded tabs or square tabs, and then how many tabs I want to list in each row. As you can see, this is just listing the defaults. You can always come back and change this if you decide something would be better for your programs. The next section is called Regional Settings. Under Regional Settings, we depict what time zone we're in, whether or not we observe daylight savings time. Then we put in the daylight savings start month and the start week and then the start day. And then you could also put in the stop month, stop week, and stop day as well. Very easy to fill out. The next section is registration settings. Again, this is defaults, but it's for our registration. So when a patron goes in and they're filling out their information to sign up for one of your programs, we could choose the library card length, the password length minimum and maximum, patron recall limit, program-specific custom registration entries, and then the start birth year. These are just defaults. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more in step number 3 of adding a brand new program as to what fields a patron would fill out during the registration process. The next section is review settings. Under here is where you're setting the default for your catalog URLs. What the library has the capability of doing is setting pictures to go along with the patron reviews. So the pictures would relate back to the catalog or the book jacket of that review. And you could set up those defaults, such as you see here, default catalog URL. And as you can see, we supply the URL, and then in carets we have the ISBN number, which whoever's updating that review can put in the actual ISBN number. The next section is security settings. Right now, there's only 2 questions, advanced security, and I have mine set up as yes. Remember, I had username and password. And then I also have the option signed up before feature, and I have that marked as yes as well. What that does is if a patron has signed up for a program in the past, they could select yes, and then they would be able to do a search and bring up their old patron information. If I change my advanced security to no, it opens up a list of fields, again, where I'm going to set the defaults for my security. So for instance, here under patron log deleting, I'm able to select yes, and this allows the patron to delete their logs. And then I could set this to no if I don't want that feature turned on. These again are defaults that you can set up and then possibly make changes to them as you're setting up your individual programs. The last section is the mobile settings, and right now we only have one field under the mobile settings, which is the mobile maximum length. This is going to allow you to display how many characters you want to have a patron populate on their mobile access. And the last field is the novelist settings, and it just enables the novelist select. If I select yes, you have to put in your profile ID and your password. Once you're done making modifications to this page, you would just select Save. Setting up your language text is very important in setting up your program. It is step number 2. You have the capability of assigning different languages, such as English, Spanish, French, Swedish, Japanese, to any of your programs. But you can also assign, let's say, an English language, but change some of the verbiage to the buttons or the overall text, the way things appear on that page. So you need to make those modifications before adding the program to your system. Let's come over to System Setup, and we're going to select Language Text Setup. Once we're in the Language Text Setup, you will see that we have some defaults here. English, Spanish, and French. The others, the adult, the PALS 2009, Teen Tech, and even this Kids, these are all test examples that I have set up in our system just to show you how you can make modifications. Let's first take a look at the English version. To edit this information, we're going to come over to the paper and pencil icon and just simply select. Once we're within the language text setup, you will see a series of different sections set up that we can make modifications. We have the button text, field labels, messages, page text, and then also page titles. The information displayed within each one of these sections, you will see an equal sign dividing the actual field name that represents the field within the program, and then the text label represented within quotation marks of the information that you can modify. To easily make a modification, you could just take out what's within the quotation marks and change the verbiage. So for instance, on this first button, it's Home Page button, I'm going to put home page instead of just home. Now when I save this and I assign it to a program, the button on that page will now be called home page and not just home. You can do the same for any of the buttons that you see listed within this section. And if I scroll down, you have quite a few choices. Again, you're only going to want to make modifications to the items within the quotation marks. If I scroll down, you will see that you could do the same for the field labels. Field labels are a little easier to understand. For instance, username label. Well, that equals username, but maybe you want to change that to patron name or some other verbiage that your library would use. Again, you're going to do the same as what we had done above. Change the items in the quotation mark. Now, by doing this under the current English text that we have set up, that's going to change it for any program that's currently assigned to this particular setup. If I wanted to create a new one, I'm going to go ahead and back out. If I wanted to completely create a new one, I would be here under Language Text Setup, and I would select Add New. Now, I still have the option of selecting English, but I can copy that information. So it brings in all of those defaults. And now I'm naming this potentially for a specific program. For instance, I'm going to call this one Tiny Tots. Now, this will represent probably the verbiage how I would reach out to my Tiny Tot patrons. So I would probably put homepage here, or for this button, select me to sign up. Something simple for our Tiny Tots to understand. And maybe under our field labels, under username, maybe I would put your name or something that they would understand. Once I make all of my modifications, I would just simply select Save, and now I have a new version out there or a new language text setup, even though it's still English. If I wanted to do the same thing for Spanish, I could, but let's go take a look at what we have for our Spanish language. If I go ahead and select Edit, you will see we've already made the modifications. So this first one, instead of saying home, it's the Spanish version of home, and so on and so forth. You also want to make sure that you're selecting the Mobile tab. If you have your program set up where a patron can use their mobile devices or even an iPad, then you want to make sure that we're setting up the languages for that as well. And as you can see, we have our defaults already set up for you. If you wanted to delete one of your languages, maybe it doesn't make sense for this year, or you're going to create a different one, you would just put a check mark in the delete column and select delete. It will ask, are you sure? And you just say OK. Now that you're done creating your languages, in step number 2 of creating your program, you'll be able to select one of your languages for that program. Did you know that there are 2 ways that you can secure your staff side of your summer reader program? Well, there are. There's the simple security, and then there's the advanced security. The difference is whether or not you allow your users to sign in with the username. So this is an example of simple security, where the user would just put in the level of password they have been issued. The other example is where a user would put in their username and then their password. And by this method, we're able to control what they have access to based on their username. We'll take a look at that example in just a few moments. Let's go back to our example of simple security. Here, I'm going to type in my administrative password and select System Maintenance. Now, as you can see, in this particular system maintenance, it's a little different than what we were looking at before, because under System Setup, we don't see the security setup. In this particular system, because we don't see that security setup, I know this is set up for simple security. Do you remember where we made that modification? Well, if you guessed it, it's under System Settings. Under System Settings, down in the security settings, you will see Advanced Security, yes or no. And this particular setup is set for no, meaning that it's going to open up these other fields that you can now control what your patrons have the option to do. So we have patron log deleting, patron log editing, patron prize notifications, so on and so forth. We'll get to that in just a few on the advanced side where to make those modifications. But for now, this is set up for simple. I'm going to scroll back up and go back to system maintenance. The other option that is not a part of the advanced security is what we call security maintenance. Under security maintenance, we have volunteer, basic, staff, and administrator. These are the 4 levels that you will have access to make modifications to the password. So for instance, if I come over here and I select administrator, the only options that I have is to modify the password. I would put in my current administrative password and then put in the new twice and just select save. If I go back to system maintenance, I would do the exact same process for staff, basic, and volunteer. So again, I would put in the administrative password, the new staff password, and re-enter that staff password. That is pretty much all you would do with simple security. If you need definitions as far as what each level would have access to, be sure to check out wiki.evancedsolutions.com for those definitions. Now let's go take a look at advanced security. So I'm going to flip over to my system and I'm going to sign in with my username and my administrative password. Go into system maintenance. Because under system settings, under that advanced security is equal to yes, it opens up this field, security setup. If I select security setup, we have more options than what we had in the simple security. The first tab that you see here is called roles. And then down here, we're going to select the 2 tabs that we're going to make modifications to those roles. And the first tab down below is called staff. Again, you're going to see those 4 levels, admin, basic, staff, and volunteer. But now we can make modifications to those. So if I select view, I can see exactly all of the roles that an administrator has. And as you can see, an administrator should have access to everything. Let's take a look at basic. And I'm going to edit basic. Now I have the option to turn off certain access, or I can turn on certain access. So if I felt like the basic should be able to add certificate setup, I could put a check mark there and save, and it changes the basic role. If I wanted to create a brand new role, I can do so by add new role. Put in a role name, and then I could copy a role such as administrator. And I'm going to just put in my role description. And now I could start taking away some of that functionality. So if I didn't want this person who is second in command to have the option to delete unregistered patrons, I could take that access away. If I don't want them to have access to the email setup, I could take that access away and select save. And now I have a completely new role. Second in command, and then you could always modify your description. As you can see, our descriptions were full access or access to the most program management functions and reports. So it's just defining that role. Let's move on to the patron access or the patron roles. So here we have the role as patron, and if I select edit, we have the same options as we had seen in the simple security under the system settings, where we could turn off certain things that a patron can do or turn on certain things. So here we have other prize notifications on the log page. Should they have access, or for instance, the log info? Should they be able to read, edit, and delete? Well, I don't think my patrons should have that access. So I'm going to take away that edit and delete, and then I would select save. And now I've made modifications to the patron access. I can also add a new patron access and depict exactly what I want my patrons to have access to, and then I can make that program specific. We'll get to that. That's part of step 1 of setting up your brand new program. The next tab that you have up here is under roles, and it's called users. By selecting users, you are now able to select your usernames with their full names, and then also select the roles that they're going to be a part of. So let's take a look at mine. I have a username as S. Canale, and when I edit that, I can now set my username, the full name, password, confirm that password. I can set up my email address and then set the role. And as you can see, I could select from any of the roles that I have set up already. Once I close, obviously I'll be added to the list. Adding a brand new username, you would just select Add New. Put in all of the important information, username, full name, passwords, email, and then obviously you would select that user's role. Just a tip and a trick, the very first thing that you should have done was change your passwords when you received your system. Once you're done making modifications to adding your users, you're done setting up your advanced security, so you would just go back to system maintenance. The next item in system setup is called Quick Search Setup. What this regulates is what fields will display in the Search All Programs area. You'll see the Search All Programs here in System Maintenance, as well as the Summer Reader Staff homepage. So over here to Search All Programs, I'm now able to search for specific patrons throughout any of my programs. Back over under System Maintenance, by selecting the Quick Search Setup, it opens up the Quick Search Setup page where I can add 3 additional fields to that area. And as you can see, I've already selected school name, library card, and now I can select another. And by just scrolling through the drop-down list, I would select that field and select Save, and it moves it to the Search All Programs. Other options that you can do under the Quick Search Setup is changing the order. So now I could change the order as to which these fields are displayed. Under System Setup, we have an area called Staff Homepage Setup. What this regulates is what fields will be displayed under the program homepage. Let's go take a quick look at an example. So I'm going to select Home. I'm going to select one of my programs. I'm just going to do a quick search. What it's regulating is the information displayed in each one of these columns. I can add fields and take away fields as I see fit. So if I come back over here under System Maintenance, select Staff Homepage Setup, I can choose the fields that I would like to modify or add, move them up and down by using the change order arrows, and select Save. Once I do so, the modification has already been made. By selecting Home, selecting my program, searching for my patrons, I now have that additional column that will display any information pertaining to those patrons. The last item in this section that we're going to talk about is called Reviews Maintenance Setup. To better understand this, let's go see what we'll be modifying in our system. To do so, I'm going to come up to the toolbar and I'm going to select Home. I'm going to select the green check mark icon, and if I hover over, you will see it's Reviews and Comments next to my Tiny Tots program. Once I'm in here, I'm going to select one of the green numbers that has either a 1, a 5, or however many you have under Pending, Denied, or Accepted. Once I select that, you will see the review for that particular status. As you can see, this one has first name, last name, Facebook, comment, delete. Now, what we're going to be managing is going to be the actual columns that you see on this page. Let's go make modifications to this page, and then we'll come back and look at the changes. To do so, I'm going to go to System Maintenance, Reviews, Maintenance Setup, and it looks just like what we were looking at under Staff Homepage Setup. I can select my fields or deselect certain fields. I could change the order of whatever field I have displayed by using the up and down arrows, and then just simply select Save. So for our example today, let's go ahead and enable the birth date. We'll go ahead and select Save. Let's go take a look at how that looks. Go up to the toolbar, select Home, select the green check mark, select the number 1 under the Denied column. Now as you can see, we have the birth date listed. So we have first name, last name, birth date, Facebook, and then the comment. And that's how you make modifications to the review's maintenance setup.